Hi, this is Derek from the Caribbean Cycling News, and this is your race report. The race was the King of the Hill, put on by the Eastside Raiders Cycling Club in partnership with H21, Square One Limited, also Roberts Construction and Engineering Limited. The Antigua and Barbuda Cycling Federation also had INET, Newsco, Paradiso Water and Gatorade on board for this particular event. Before we go any further, I'd like to thank all of the volunteers that were out on the road. The feedback that we've had so far was from the riders was they felt really supported while they were on the road, and kudos has to also go out to the Royal Police Force of Antigua and Barbuda as well, because without them we wouldn't have been able to have a race. So as I mentioned before, it was the King of the Hill race. Robert Marsh was the King of the Hill for the 2019 season. We didn't have the race back in 2020 because of COVID, as we all know. And we had to also change the routes because of some road works that were going on in Fig Tree. But what they did do, they decided to find the hilliest roads in the whole of Antigua. So to give you an example, the race was only a 33-mile race, but they had to do 3,000 feet of climbing in a 32-mile race. So they hit everything that we had on the island. As you can see on the map at the top of the screen, the race started at Shirley Heights. It made its way all the way down to Freetown, back out of Freetown, through Bethesda, back to the top of back to the top of Shirley Heights, and that was where the race concluded. 22 riders participated in the race, which was double the number that took part in the previous edition of the event. And we had people like Ken Jackson coming out of retirement, especially for the King of the Hill race, and I want to give a big kudos to that man for coming out on the day. But we'll go right into the race, and I want to start with what happened in the elite class. So we had 9 cyclists that were participating in the elite class. We had Emmanuel, Jeffrey, Robert, Conroy Thomas, Albert, Kwame, Zafel Bailey, Sean Weathered, Gear Coates, and Rene Giro. Those were the 9 guys that hit the start line. But I need to take you back the week before. Sean went on the radio, on Observer Radio, and predicted what the outcome of the race was going to be. And then on Saturday, Robert Marsh, who is the original King of the Hill, it was his race, decided to go on record to say that the outcome could be different to what Sean had actually stated. So it was good before the race started that there was a little bit of banter and a bit of edge about the race. Now we had Zafel and Albert from St. Vincent and the Grenadines that made a decision that this race they were going to make a statement, because they come from the land of climbing. So for, I would say, 70% of the race, they were in the main pack with all of the boys that were coming across the climbs around the island. Within the first 5 miles, we lost Rene Giro because his derailleur broke on his bike. By the time we got to Freetown, Gear Coates was having problems with his gears. And I have to give a big shout out to our president, who did one of the fastest bike changes that I've ever seen. And if you haven't watched the live video, I suggest you pop onto the live to see how quickly they got Gear a bike so that he could continue on the race while somebody was looking at his bike and getting his bike ready for him so that he could complete the rest of the race. But you have to see it to understand it. It was slick. Well, by the time we got to Half Moon Bay, Jeffrey Kelsig decided to make a break straight down the hill, round the corner, got to Mill Reef, spun back round, came up the hill like a whippet. When all the other riders are thinking what was going on, the next thing, Manuel Guerrero did the same thing. As soon as that happened, it then became a two-man race. We followed very, very closely behind Manny. Well, we followed closely behind Marsh first because it became a three-man race, because the three of them decided to ride off and leave everybody. But even with them riding off, the difference between first, which was Jeffrey, and third was still like a 1.5 minute gap. And in the middle of that 1.5 minute gap, you had Manny. So the three of them were vying to get back to the front, or to get back to the finish. Manny caught Jeffrey, and the two of them rode back up Shirley Heights together, and Manny took first place, Jeffrey took second. So Sean, you were right. You predicted how it was going to go. The only thing that I would say, Sean, was that, you know, we thought you were going to come third. But we'll talk about that on the radio on Saturday, I'm sure. If you take a look at the screen right now, you'll see all the positions of all the riders that came across the line for the elite class. And I want to give kudos for all 8 riders that took part in the elite event. Vanessa continued with her winning ways to take the crown for the females. In the Masters, and as I said, I wanted to give a big shout out to Ken Jackson. It was great to have him back in the sport. He came third overall in the race, and you'll see the results on the screen right now. Patrick Peters, Don Dada, the most consistent cyclist in the whole of Antigua, came first, and Delvin Peters came second out of Team Terminus. In the sports class, you had my good buddy Amari King coming in first, with Joel Griffin second, Vaughan Gomes third, and Tucky, the main man, came fourth. And a big shout out to Tucky, because as I said, it's 3,000 feet of climbing, and he just made it look like light work. You know, so big up to you, Tucky, and what you're doing out there in the world of cycling. Jason Adam and Randy Simon did not complete the ride. And coming back to Amari King, I'm only giving you a few more races, and then you need to go up into the higher classes, mate, because you know that's where you belong. I want to say a big congratulations to Tajay Brown and Aidan Murray Walker, coming first and second respectively in the cadet class. These are 2 stars of the future of cycling here in Antigua and Barbuda. So thank you for tuning in to our race report here on the Caribbean Cycling Network. If you like what you heard, then please feel free to give us a follow on Facebook, and look out for the next video, which will be for the Subway 3-stage race.